if you have a way that you can actually earn money off of it, if it's something you want to do, if you don't want to, then don't bother with it. But if it's something you want to do, then how can we make that easier? Welcome to the Charcuterie Launch Lab Podcast, where passion meets profit. If you've ever dreamed of turning your love for charcuterie, or food of any kind, into a thriving online business, well then you're in the right place. We're Andrea and Patty, the Grazing Biz Sisters. With over 60 years combined experience as a chef and digital marketer, we have walked in your shoes starting our own online businesses. We'll share all of our tips, advice, struggles, and best strategies to help you launch and grow your own online foodie business with ease. The Charcuterie Launch Lab is a space for all food creators and entrepreneurs just like you. Let's dive in and get your yummy business launched online, one board at a time. All right. Well, it's our first podcast.
Yay!
What are we doing?
We have no idea what we're doing. So
Well,
everybody, we're not too boring.
no, I don't think we'll be too boring.
Kind of
we
interesting.
spend a lot of time talking to each other. I think probably the biggest problem you and I are going to have is not talking over each other. So,
Yeah.
well,
The bad
anyway.
trait.
Yeah, right. That's a family thing. What are we going to do? Well, we thought maybe today's podcast we would, because it's our first one, and try to tell you a little bit about why we are doing what we're doing. And we thought it would help you all who are listening to this. We just kind of want to tell a little bit about how we got started. I think today is important to know, just to kind of lay a little groundwork. But so just a little, I am older. So I am Patty, for those of you who don't know, Patty Sampson, and I am older than my sister here, Andrea, Chef Andrea, we'll call her. And we've been, we grew up together, obviously, and we are both in our mid to over 50s. Let's just say that we're over 50s. I'm over that by a lot.
I was going to say that.
Well, I didn't want to throw us both under the bus, but anyway, I just thought it kind of interesting to hear our story, because I think many of our listeners are going to have similar stories. They may not be our age. Hopefully, they're younger and they're figuring out how to start a business, and that we get a following of people that are just going to be a little more younger, so they can realize the fun and the joy of owning your own business. So that's a lot of what this podcast is going to be about, is not just about, making charcuterie. And I've got to get the way to say this right too. So I want to make sure I don't screw that up. But
No, that time you got it right.
I got it right that time. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't do the charcuterie.
The charcuterie.
That's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I know. It's funny because I went to Google about charcuterie, and it said, "How do you actually say it?" Was like one of the first things that I saw on Google, which is kind of hilarious. So you tell us a little bit about, Andrea, how we know it's charcuterie versus charcuterie. It's a good question, actually.
What do you mean? How do you know?
Well, how do we know we're saying it right? Charcuterie versus charcuterie.
Oh, well, the only reason I know is because I lived in Brussels for so many years, and
speak French
I spoke
there.
French when I was there. And CH in French is a sh sound. It's not ch, like in American or even UK English. It's always going to be sh. So
Okay.
for me, it's always going to be charcuterie. I mean, that's just,
Right.
that's how I associate it.
So my American background, because I did not live in Europe like you did, just has no problem pulling out the on it.
I know.
I feel like I'm from the West. Obviously, I'm from the West.
Well, it's like I say a lot of words incorrectly, just in general, because when you live there for 7 years, and they may not be, they're not necessarily an English word like charcuterie. I'm trying to come up with one in my head right now, but I can't think of one. But there are a lot of words that are now being used in the English or American English, lexicon, where they say it and it's like I say it wrong. Okay, here's a really good example. So I think in American English you say I can't even say it in English. So it's a wine. It's a wine from the Alsatian region of France, which is the eastern side by Germany. And in France and Germany, you say Gewürztraminer. But here, how do they say that? It's Gewürztraminer or something like that. And it just sounds so wrong.
Sounds
And
like liver sausage, liverwurst.
yeah,
Liverwurst.
liverwurst,
Yeah,
because the W is a B. It's not,
yeah,
I even know that in German. So anyways, that's
yeah.
just a,
Side note.
yeah,
Gosh,
that's
you
just a
just
little
know
side
you're going to
note.
come here and get French speaking knowledge. But well, I think the big thing I want to focus on today, Andrew, is really just kind of talking about how we both got started. So I'm gonna, because this is our first podcast and both of us are kind of wandering around figuring out how we're going to do this. I'm going to start by asking you questions, and then how about you start by asking me questions too? So my first question to you, Andrew, is like, when was it in your life that you realized that you liked food and cooking? I mean, when did you realize this was what you wanted your life to be? I mean, I
So,
know it wasn't instantly. I mean, other than the fact we
no,
were
no,
kids
it
eating.
almost was instantly. When I moved to Brussels in my first marriage, I really still didn't know how to cook. I was only 22 years old. And I
Forgot.
didn't really know how to cook. I had to look up, in my Joy of Cooking cookbook, how to hard boil an egg. And, toast was a struggle. So when I moved there, obviously you're exposed to just a ton of, I mean, the people in Europe, it's amazing. They're not fat. There's hardly any obese people, and they eat like no other people
Yeah.
ever, like in Brussels and in obviously Paris and then Amsterdam. I was crunched in between them in Brussels, in the French-speaking part of Brussels. And the food is just incredible. And so everywhere I went, and every time I went somewhere, I would, buy a cookbook, and I still have them all on my shelf, and I would try to, emulate those things. So consequently became an entertainer for all of my friends, did Thanksgivings because they didn't know what it was, and,
Oh,
just
yeah.
dinners every weekend. And we just were all, it seemed like all we did was eat. And I was cooking.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, so at one point, I wasn't necessarily struggling with life. I just, it's just one of those weird things. I was sitting at the table, one of my best friends, Angie, who is English and her husband is Sicilian. She was sitting next to me, and I don't even remember the meal we were having, but she looks at me and she goes, "Did you ever think about doing this for a living?" And I was like, "Do what?" And she goes, "Cook."
Yeah.
My God. She's like, "The best meals I ever eat are at your house." And I just like, it was like a light bulb went
Yeah.
off. And
Yeah.
we were getting ready within the next 2 years to move back to the United States. And that's when I applied for culinary school.
Yeah.
And I just went for it. And that was God, it was, our father died in 1999. So,
99. Yeah.
and I enrolled in school that year. We moved back in 97.
Hmm.
I enrolled in school in 99.
I remember that time when you and I were both going through life changes at the
Yeah.
moment. And
Yeah.
I was getting ready to get divorced myself. So, but you were still married at the
I was
time.
still very
Yeah,
married. I
yeah.
just didn't want to, I had no life of my own. It was all revolved around family, which
The
there's nothing
kids.
wrong with that, but it
Right.
was time. I was 30 something years old, and I just wanted to go do something for myself. And I never got off that conversation that I had with Angie at the table that day. And
It's
that's
yeah.
where it went.
I think you're hitting home there for probably a lot of our listeners because if you're a woman listening to this, if you're a man, great. But if you're a woman listening to this, you probably have gone through that where you've spent so much time focused on your family that at one point you got to go, I need to do something for myself. For me, I remember the first step I took to go do something for myself after having the littles at home and not wanting to leave the house because they were too little yet to leave them with the hubby for more than an hour, was, I mean, as simple as I need to go back to singing, and,
Yeah.
because, everybody should, well, not everybody knows this, but I am a competitive singer now, but at the time, I just went back to community college just to go sing with the choir there, and but it
Hmm.
was the first step out of the house to be able to go, oh, I got to do this. I need something
Yeah.
else other than
Yeah.
work all day. Because, work all day, we were both working. You came back to the US, were you working? I don't remember if you went right to
Uh,
work or you went
I
right to
was
school.
still
Can't
working,
remember.
so at that point, this totally ages both of us, I think. So in
We're old. What do you want?
1994 was the first time I started working at home because I worked for my husband's business
Yeah.
and for his father. And when 1994 came along, all right, my youngest daughter was born, Sarah,
Hmm.
and it was my excuse to stop working. I was
Hmm.
like, I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to go into the office. I don't want to have it because we had a nanny with the other kids and we had all this stuff going on. And I was like, I just want to focus on being a mother for
Hmm.
once. And so lo and behold, the internet comes to life.
Oh
And that
gosh.
was that. They set me up, in the house in Brussels with the whole desk and the whole, I had no idea what the internet was. I didn't
Yeah. It
even,
was
I mean,
around
I knew how to
94, I
obviously work a
think.
computer, but
Yeah.
the fact, I remember the very first time it hooked up and it did the whole dial up and it made that noise and,
Yeah.
and then it hooked up and it turned on. And I don't think we had AOL because we were in Brussels. I don't remember. It was some other thing. But anyways, and it came on and I was like, so now what do I do? I'm
Yeah.
looking at the screen going, it was an original search engine. I don't even remember what it was, but
Mm,
I put in awatuki.com because that's where I lived, or we had another house there in Phoenix. And that was our neighborhood newspaper. And I thought, I put in Awatuki. So I put in Awatuki, awatuki.com came up. There were very few internet or websites at that point in the neighborhood. And lo and behold, they had a website. And that was the very first website I went to. So
website.
anyway, long story short, I wanted to quit working because I was, the third time mom and that got blown out the window by the internet.
Yeah.
Which is okay
So
because
you
look
weren't
at
work.
me,
Yeah. So
30 something years later, here I am in my kitchen.
yeah.
My office is in my kitchen because this is what I do. And
Hmm.
now I do it all from home rather
Makes
than,
sense. Yeah.
and yeah, now I don't go into after years and years and years of being a food and beverage director and an executive chef and sous chefs and all that jazz. Now I'm just doing my thing at home, which is
Right.
what we're trying to show other people how to do this.
Hmm. Yeah, right around that time, I was 94. I remember that first internet that I had was, I can't even, I wish I could remember. I want to say it was web something, but it was just a keyboard that hooked up to your television. I don't know if you
Oh,
had that. And
no, I
now
never
we
had that.
really
I always
are
had
aging
Macs. I'm
ourselves.
a Mac person.
Yeah, so
So,
no, we didn't even have, it wasn't on a computer. We didn't have desktops at the time, I mean,
right.
not like we do today, right? So it hooked up to the television. And I
Hmm.
remember sitting in my lazy boy with that keyboard, but that's probably was the start of my brain going, oh my God, the world
What
is
can we do
opening
with
up,
this?
right? And so, of course, again, we are aging ourselves. Most of our listeners probably aren't hearing this. Going, what on earth? It's kind of like Katie Couric
Okay,
going,
I'm just
hey,
going to
what
throw
is
it out there.
WW?
I'm going to be 57 in a week, so less than a week now.
Yeah, well,
So
guess what? I'm older than that,
there we go. And
but
Patty's 5 years
lots.
older than me.
Yeah. But no, but I remember that, and I think had the internet not come along, I mean, thank God it did, but none of us obviously would be here. But we had so many opportunities, I think, as business owners to get our business online, and I think it's important that we all know whatever it is you want to do, even if it's not what we're talking about, food and online business or any. Really, I think this podcast shouldn't just be about charcuterie with an SH, but I really think it should be more about just business, women and men, if they want to get out of the daily grind and,
Yeah, just
whether,
promoting people.
yeah,
Don't be scared. I was, I can't say that I wasn't scared doing any of this, but in general, I just had thoughts and went, okay, I'm done working for other people. I personally got to an age where I was done making money for other people.
right.
And unfortunately, in the food and beverage industry, we don't get paid very well for the passionate, loving jobs that we do. It sucks that we
Yeah.
don't get paid very well. And that never really bothered me all that much because really at the end of the day, I had, by going to culinary school and moving my way up the way I did, I made the most amount of money that most people will
Possibly
ever
could.
make in this
Right.
industry, unless you're
Right.
like some crazy chef on TV, which we don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that you can make it work no matter what age you are. I don't care if you're 30 I started doing this only years ago, just a few years ago, and here I am, and
Yeah.
utilizing everything I already had. And I didn't buy anything more necessarily to make it all happen.
So, the first thing that you put on the internet to sell, what was that? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, no, I don't.
Uh,
I really don't. Um, I
yeah.
know that I started blogging however many years ago, and at that point, no, at that point it was more just like I just want to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really selling anything. And now the website does very well. In fact, I
I
just
think it could have
put a
been like
turkey
recipes and
recipe
things
on.
like that. So, you were doing recipes for children, right? You did that book, the book thing, recipes for children. But I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if
did
that was the
that.
first
I
thing you
mean,
sold.
there's been so many things that
Yeah.
I've tried and stumbled through, and things are still out there. So,
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying new things to see, what people are interested in. What I do find is that the more stuff you throw out there, obviously, the more you're going to get interest in whatever it
hmm
is you're doing. So I don't, you know, and
Yeah.
then
Well, that's true.
videos is a whole nother thing.
Right.
So that
Well,
could be another podcast by itself.
yeah, I mean, I started personally on the internet when I got my real estate license, which was in 2004 when I got it. And I mean, obviously, I had to sell, we were doing online leads at the time, which is really the only way I've done my real estate business in the last 20 years has been mostly internet based. And referrals after you start to get to know people, you get referrals, which I think is the same for any business you're in. If you're selling anything, you want to get referral business always. And real estate isn't just the only business that you'd want because you want other people to tell other people. So I think it's really key that if you're going to start this, that the first thing you think about is to don't lose track of your existing database of people. Like if they're coming in, like you sell your first board to just somebody that you never did it online. We're just you happen to like Andrea showed up. I told the story in the workshop that I did recently where one of the reasons we really ended up here was because Andrea was already doing a lot of food related stuff, but one day she came to the house and did a birthday charcuterie board. And this was a while back, but she did a birthday charcuterie board for my husband who was turning 70. And everybody walked into the party and were just, what? I literally did not want to touch it. It was so beautiful. I probably didn't eat anything off of that till the end of the party after it all been all picked
After
over.
it was all screwed up.
It was
Yeah.
all picked over, right? So
I know
but
people were,
it was
what I
so
noticed,
good.
yeah, what I noticed was that people were automatically going
Drawn
to
to it.
like the bowl of mom's Chex Mix because they were afraid to touch it.
Yeah.
And I finally said to, there was like a group of people around the counter. You know what? Eat,
It's like
please.
art.
I
Yeah.
know it looks pretty, but
Right.
enjoy it, and then please dig in because I bought all this stuff. Don't just
Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it did. It looked like artwork when you came in and everyone was just drawn to it. But yeah, I think they were a little fearful. They didn't really know what to do, I don't think, at first, because even though I think we're used to going and seeing these all over the place, I don't think a lot of us see them inside of our homes that often. And so I think at that point, you and I both kind of looked at each other and went, oh, crap, this might really be an awesome idea for a business. And I think how I look at it is anything that you love to do, which you love to do this, if you love to do it, and I don't care what it is, if you have a way that you can actually earn money off of it, if it's something you want to do, if you don't want to, then don't bother with it. But if it's something you want to do, then how can we make that easier? How do you, and so I know you and I had this discussion about, hey, let's see what we could do about getting these boards online and how important it would be to start letting the world know that not only are you good at this, because it helped that you were already a chef, but I think there's so many people that are maybe our listeners that just love making them, and you get on Pinterest and you figure it out, and it's not that hard really to figure it out. You just got to spend a little time and figure out what cheeses and meats and all that stuff goes
Mhm.
together best. We'll do future podcasts on, how do you put things on the board that makes sense for, whatever
Right. And I mean,
flavors,
it
but
doesn't, everybody's got a different style.
yeah,
So, you're
yeah,
taking it's this and that and things you see and
Right.
food you like and stuff
And
like that. There's no copycatting when it comes to stuff like this.
right.
It's just
How do you, if you were going to brand yourself, like coming out the chute, if you wanted to try to brand yourself with your, it's like people, we know Van Goghs, for instance, we know, we could look right at that piece of
and
art and
no,
know
yeah.
mostly who those are. Is that possible to do that with a charcuterie board? To be able to have your signature on it somehow? And like how would you do that if you wanted to? Do you have an
Mm,
idea?
I think I had kind of thrown around the idea of throwing my logo onto
Like some
the
cheese?
signage.
Oh.
So when you have the little toothpick thing, like the little teeny weeny logo was something
Hmm.
that I kind of threw around for that, but then I was like, I don't want to throw it in
Yeah, see,
people's face.
I'm talking more about your
But
design of the
as
way
far as
you
design
put your
wise,
boards together.
no, I don't think there is. I mean, certainly people would figure it out because they figure out everything, but I don't necessarily think there is. Like, I don't have any one way of doing things aside from maybe some of my garnishes that I just like to do, like, for example, the leek leaf.
Hmm.
That could be something that would be signature on every single one of my boards or somehow
Hmm.
being in there. That could be, if you had one particular garnish that you were
That you
prone
like a
to,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, that you
That
just,
looks pretty. I mean, even if it's
right,
just decoration that you put on there, it
right,
doesn't need to
right,
be,
right,
I always put this sausage on the plate, because
right.
I think the reality is that most people that are going to attend an event, if you put a board down, that they're not going to go, oh my God, that blah, blah, blah cheese is so delicious because they don't necessarily know what cheese it is. All they know is it tastes
Most of the
good.
time they don't,
So,
yeah.
I think, putting certain things on the board isn't necessarily like as far as the food going to make a difference, but maybe it's the way you cut it and the way you
Yeah,
put it
like
on
I
there.
said,
Yeah, I like the idea of,
I use the leek leaves for a lot of decoration, number one, because it's sort of a byproduct of the
hmm
leek itself. So the leeks, I love leeks. I
hmm
use them instead of onions in a lot of cases for a lot of things. I just used them last night to make dinner for my family.
hmm
So so the leaves, don't ever throw those away for the love
yeah.
of God.
Oh
If you
yeah.
hold on to them,
Yeah.
there's
And
so
do
much you
stuff.
can do with them,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that as well.
Yeah, I think the key though is as you're rolling this out, if you're thinking of considering this, is that one of the first things you need to do, I need to get a new chair. This thing's squeaking too much. But it's going to be really screwed up on the
One of the first
podcast.
things you need to do is buy
Let's get a new
chairs.
chair. Yeah, this thing's been worn out. I'll tell you that. But I think one of the first things that if you're gonna do this, start coming up with your brand, and it's not just logo. Obviously, you need logos and things like that, but come up with your brand. What's going to make you stand out? Because especially if you're in an area like we're at in the I'm at in the greater Phoenix area. Andrea's up north from here, but it's still, you're going to need to stand out. And what is going to make you different than everybody else, even if it's not board related, but it's the way you operate your business or
Yeah,
the
at the
way
end of
that
the day,
you,
I think
yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah,
It's how you operate your business, how you treat people, your customer service skills. So for example, if you have any kind of retail or, working in an office and you deal with people, your skills are already there. The rest of
hmm
it you can learn and it's not that hard to do.
yeah,
Especially if you have some kind of passion for it.
right.
It's not that hard to do.
So
So,
when you
but you have to
started,
be able to talk to people and you have to be able to be personable and empathetic, see
hmm
things from their point of view.
hmm
Their struggles with designing a party and maybe you can even help them just a little bit here or there go, if you wanted to do it this way, this would work too.
hmm
So, I mean, a lot of that is just
right,
using your own common sense
right,
and try not to think too hard about it because you could,
right.
you
Well,
get
and let me ask you this too, because I think as people are sitting there being a little overwhelmed with the idea of starting a business like this,
certain.
how many boards do you think I need to have on my menu? I mean, because that's part of getting ready is what's your menu going to consist of, and how much do you have to have in order to have a business? How
Mhm.
many different menus do you need? I mean,
Yeah.
I personally don't think you need more than even just to get started with two. You just have different sizes and then throw
Yeah,
on some accoutrements, as you say,
exactly. I
right?
wouldn't I wouldn't get nutty with it in any way. In fact, for my own business, I've been hesitant about and going back and forth about doing unless people request it, the cups and the
Yeah.
other things, those are going to be special requests because I feel like when you're online, that is too much. It's too overwhelming. Oh, maybe I should get those cups instead of getting the 10-person board, whatever. But, you kind of, in a way, with any other business, you have to, what I like to call train the customer. So you are swinging them this way so that so that it makes it easier for them.
Hmm.
Because sometimes, yeah, I think
Well, they
that's
don't know what
the
they don't
biggest problem.
know.
They just get overwhelmed and then they just go,
Right.
never mind, I'm not even going to bother,
Right. I'm notorious for that in my business. And, because my entire business is all digital software background, digital downloads. And I tend to go, I have basically a menu that I offer, and it's really hard to rein it in because I feel like I want to help as many people as I can. In my world, what I do is I help people in all these different softwares. And so as a result, I'm creating content to go into those softwares. And then, like we're doing here too, but then you find out you've got too much, and then people come in and they go to your website and they get lost. I mean,
Yeah,
it literally,
the
it
brain
happens to me.
explodes. They just go,
Yeah, it
you know.
happens to me every single day. And I tend to, because I want to over deliver, but you find out when you're over delivering, you're over confusing everybody, right? So I got to write
Yeah.
that down. Let's put that on
And I shouldn't knock this simply because it's a big business and they obviously have done well over the years, but I use the term the Cheesecake Factory. You don't want to
oh
Cheesecake
my
Factory
gosh.
everything,
Oh, yeah.
because it to me, I don't even go in the Cheesecake Factory. I don't even know if they
She's
exist
fake cactus.
anymore. They could be
They
one of
do.
those
They're down
other,
here. Yeah. Yeah.
those restaurants that no longer exist. But when you go in there, it's just too much. Like when you have a menu that is that big and most of it is full of ads for whatever reason, they sell ads within the
Right.
menu. But then there's so much stuff on there. I just try to imagine in my head what that kitchen looks like. It
Right.
just like because that's where my brain goes. But I
Well,
think it's too
where my
much
brain goes is
personally.
since now my son, Derek is a chef too. He tells me a lot of that stuff is just crap that they buy pre-made and they just throw it
Yeah,
together.
it
And it's
is. They
mostly,
just
it's
throw it
not
together.
what you think it is, even though it tastes okay. It's not what you think. It's not the way they make it sound.
Right.
So it's not anyway. But
Yeah, we don't want to go
I'm
there.
totally with you on that though. If you're feeling this overwhelm, like I don't even know where to start because should I have 14 different boards? And no, I don't think you need to. I
No.
think honestly, if you just had, a good ingredient list that you're always going to use and just have different sizes, and you're right with the cups thing. I mean, I would say, unless I felt like I was going to, now again, I don't do this, but if I'm wrong, you tell me. But I'm always thinking, how are we going to do this and make it easy on us? No matter,
Right.
even when you're making your boards, but now you've got to get it online, and now you've got this massive amount of information we've got to get
Right.
transferred onto a website, and that's difficult. So I think honestly, if you just even had one board and maybe three or four different sizes and some upsell accoutrements that you want to put on there, I mean, they could be separate. They could be exactly the same boards. You're just saying, oh, now somebody's 31. Let's put some 31 cheese on there or
Right.
whatever,
Or you add the holiday
or
flavor
the
to it,
holiday flavor to it,
however
right?
that wants to
So
work.
I think
But
that's the big key as you're thinking about wanting to launch this. But we between Andrea and I, we have a lot of experience with her and her catering. We're going to get into all that eventually in future episodes, but all the catering that goes along with it and just delivering and or picking up and like where don't get overwhelmed by all of that, because once the word gets out and other people are telling other people, which is really going to be the key I think for everybody, is tell the world. Most of my income through the years has come from referral business. Yes, I've gotten it online, but it's only gotten online because other people are saying, go over to that website or go check it out, or here's her
mhm.
website, or go to YouTube and, or wherever, and she's got this or whatever. So This can be done, I think, very, I want to say it's easy, but it's not for many people who have not ever even tipped a toe
Right.
into the world of being online. Because we could sit in our kitchens all day and make this stuff up and go, God, now this is so beautiful. I hate to have it sit here. Now what do I do? We don't want that.
The kitchen part is the easy part, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
It's
the fun part.
marketing.
I like the marketing
It
part.
is the fun part.
But yeah.
And once you get into the kitchen, it's such a relief when you finally start selling and you get to actually go do the shopping and start putting the things together. And then you realize that it's all,
Right.
all that other stuff that you unfortunately have to do, which we'll get into
The overwhelm that, and the great thing is that's what
eventually it'll all come together, and I make it sound easy, but eventually it will come to pass. Right. And I don't want people to be scared because they think it will never happen. No. It will. It takes persistence. It takes patience, and you just got to keep plugging away.
Persistence, patience, and passion. That's what I'm going to write all that down, right? So the key about the
three P's.
The 3 P's, which I like. Persistence. Let me write it. I forgot it already. Persistence, patience, and passion. Because we already know you're here and have the passion. We know that because you wouldn't be here.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here for sure. None of us would be if we didn't have the passion. I've got this weird passion about, how do you work with a customer relationship management software? And what? A CRM? Yeah, what's wrong with you? Yeah, there's something wrong with me. But I do love it because this is what I'd say to people. This is what I always say to people. Number one is my laziness made me money. My laziness made me efficient, and my efficiency made me money because I don't like reinventing wheels. And so what I realized was, if we're going to do something one time and we're going to do it, and there's other people asking for it, or you're saying the same thing over and over again, then create an automation for it. So figure out a way to duplicate what you're doing. So that's why I say, don't get overwhelmed by thinking I got to roll out 15 different things. No, you're going to be known for this one thing that you're going to do so well, even if it's just one board and you just change the size up on it. I think that's the first step out the chute. And then, the other key to all of this is really just that the money's in the follow-up, you guys. So if you're going to start this, your follow-up to continue getting more business because that's how you're going to grow. Like, you don't have to put 10 different things on your menu, have one. And as you're growing and people ask you for other things, that's when you can add those if you feel like it's important to you, adding those cups or doing large tables. I think that would be scary to me. If I had to go in and do a large table initially, that would be overwhelmed, right? And don't take on something you don't think you can do. Is your cat attacking you?
No, my dog.
Oh, your dog
decided to
come in,
do her shake. I don't know what that was.
Well, anyway, so I think for our first Charcuterie Launch Lab podcast, I feel like we've offered a little bit of, we're just warming up. We're going to have a lot more that's going to come. We have a lot to say, both of us do, and I think we're going to try to keep these to 20 to 25 minutes, 30 at the most, unless there's something amazingly important that you should know. But I feel like we have, as a digital marketer, which is really my background, I could go on for hours and hours and hours, but it gets kind of dry. So I like the idea of being able to talk about food at the same time, because that's fun. And not to say that my stuff's not fun. I mean, if you want my opinion, it's the funnest, but I get it stinks for
everybody's
a lot of people.
Got their thing. No,
we got our thing, right?
So.
I know it stinks for a lot of people, but it definitely, the great thing is when we put our two heads together, and we're talking over 60, 65 years between us of experience, we have so much that we can help you with. So anyway, we hope you love this. And if you know other people who would like to, would get some value out of what we're going to go through here, please be sure to share this podcast with other people, and no matter your favorite podcasts. And if you can put a comment here, that'd be awesome too. And just say, give us a thumbs up that we're on the right track for you. And any feedback that you'd like maybe us to talk about, because we could talk about everything from, how do you cut up cheese all the way to, how do I set up my automations to, keep getting business coming in? So we can go all the way from the beginning to the very back end of your business. So Make sure that you let us know what you'd like us to talk about, because we got a huge array
Yeah, we
of
want to hear it.
things.
We want to
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah. Well, we won't get into, the years and years of our family, but eventually we'll get into.
Well, we'll probably be throwing that out here and there. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Because that's why we are where we are and who we are. So it is part of the backstory. And so
Yeah.
eventually those things will come out, but we'll try not to bore you all to
no,
death.
I think we'll have all the good entertaining stuff, right?
Yeah.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we hope to see you again, and thank you so much for hanging
Thanks
out
for
with us.
listening.
Yeah, at the Charcuterie Launch Lab Podcast. We're so thrilled for
Not
your
charcuterie,
Not
charcuterie.
charcuterie.
I
Well,
heard you say char.
it's going to take me 20 weeks at least to get this
At
right.
least.
So yeah, but we'll get it right. I'm not overly concerned. Honestly, I'll do my best, but I'm not the chef here. So, and I'll be the first to admit it. And I'm also not speaking another language, unfortunately. But all right. Anyway, hope to see you all next time. Come on back, and we're going to try to put some more great content for you. See you later.
Bye.